Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsoring partner, the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. I'm so excited that CBME has now partnered with Fund to Foundation in support of their Intern X program. If you're not familiar, Intern X is an ambitious new initiative that's looking to match 10,000 skilled young adults nationwide with quality internship opportunities by the year 2020. So here's what's up. We need your help. We need you to share the word about this awesome new internship opportunity for young adults. If you're interested in learning more, you want to register, I want you to go over to bit.ly/CBMA InternX. Again, that's bit.ly/CBMA InternX. I want you to go ahead and click on the link there to register. And be sure to type or select the Campaign for Black Male Achievement as the affiliate organization that referred you. Let's go ahead and get our young folk registered today so they can begin to gain access to the benefits of this awesome program.
You're listening to the Trailblazers.fm podcast, where we'll explore the stories of today's successful Black professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders. Join us to access the knowledge, resources, and tools of these accomplished professionals and come away with the know-how, confidence, and motivation you'll need to blaze your trail. And now, here's your host, Stephen A. Hart.
What's up, Blazer Nation? Welcome to episode 171 of the Trailblazers.fm podcast. Our featured trailblazer for today is Dr. Thandeka Myeni. Dr. Myeni is affectionately known as Dr. Thandi, and she's a board-certified ophthalmologist with double specialty training in glaucoma, cataract surgery, and LASIK. Her ophthalmology training began with a residency at Howard University Hospital here in DC. And she's completed 2 fellowships, one in glaucoma, another in cataract and refractive surgery. So in today's conversation, we talked about so much, but what truly caught my attention more than anything is a discussion about glaucoma. And Dr. Thandi brings up some information and some statistics about the parallels with glaucoma and people of color. And I want to assure you, you don't want to miss this. This is not an old people thing. And that's all I'm going to say right there. You want to make sure you listen to what she has to share. Also, Dr. Thandi and I discussed the importance of self-love and self-care. And she spoke about an epidemic that is affecting so many doctors right now and talked about practical ways and things we need to be doing to help our doctors love on themselves and get that needed self-care. Before we dive into today's episode, just want to love on and send a special big ups to all our Blazer Nation moms. Thank you so much for being the amazing mothers that you are. Dr. Thandi, that includes you too. Thank you to my mom. Thank you to my wife. Thank you to my mother-in-law and my sisters, Stephanie and Tiana. Thank you to our past featured guests, all the moms and all our listeners out there in the Blazer Nation universe. We love you. Just want to let you know we value you and your commitment as the wonderful mothers and grandmothers that you are. And that said, let's go ahead and dive in and receive today's mission field from our featured trailblazer, Dr. Thandeka Myeni. Dr. Thandi, thank you so much. Welcome to the program.
Hi, not doctors. Hi, Stephen. Not everybody's a doctor, right?
That's right.
I'm so happy to be with you and to talk.
Absolutely.
You ready to have a fun hour?
Yes, absolutely. So we start off all our conversations from a place of gratitude. So I wanted to pick your brain and hear what's an unexpected blessing that you're grateful for in your life right now.
Well, I'm definitely grateful for this opportunity to be here with you and to share. And this is what I'm passionate about. And there's so many things that I'm grateful for. Actually, that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. Is one of my mnemonics is be thankful and play. But we could talk about that later.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Let me ask you, where are you originally from?
The question that everybody wants to know. I like to describe myself as a child of the world because I was born in New York City. Shout out to all the New Yorkers listening. But my my dad is South African and my mom is from a small country in Southern Africa called Swaziland, which is one of the last in
Yes.
Africa. And I spent part of my childhood in the United States and part of my childhood in Swaziland. And now my father and brother all live in South Africa.
Nice. I love that. My wife spent a year and a half in South Africa, and I actually had a close friend of mine who was in a Bible study group with me for about 5 years, who is from Swaziland. His wife was a diplomat here for a few years, and they're back in Swaziland. Actually, might be stationed somewhere else right now because she travels the world. But yeah, I'd love to visit someday.
Oh, we should plan a trip. Trailblazers, Swaziland in South Africa version.
Absolutely.
My brother actually is, and I didn't realize, he is one of 2 Black chief editors of GQ magazine in the world. So he's the chief editor of GQ magazine South Africa.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So we can visit with him, get an article on Trailblazers in GQ, and then tour the country.
That would be fun. That would be a blast. Let me ask you, let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing. You're a board certified ophthalmologist and you specialize in glaucoma, cataract surgery, and LASIK. Let me ask you, at what point did you realize this is something that you wanted to do growing up?
Well, it's funny because I actually, when I went to medical school, one of my mentors is an amazing obstetrician and gynecologist. And I've always been interested in women's empowerment and helping out women. And I thought I was going to become an obstetrician gynecologist. And that was my plan when I went to medical school. I was the student president of the OBGYN group, and I was all go, go, go. But then for the first time in my life, a couple of things happened. One, in my mid-20s, I realized that I needed glasses. And that was the first time that I realized how important vision is and how much it impacts your life if you don't see well. And then the second thing that happened is that I met this really amazing mentor and teacher, Dr. Stearns, who was very much into mindfulness and gratitude and all those practices. Everybody loved her. And while I was working with her, I saw my first LASIK surgery. And this person went from not being able to see their alarm clock, essentially being legally blind without glasses. After a less than 10-minute procedure, they could see. And I have, to this day, never seen anyone happier. And the idea that I could change somebody's life so drastically in just a few minutes was fascinating to me. And that's when I decided I wanted to do ophthalmology.
Wow. That's fantastic. I can attest, I actually met you through my eye doctor, right? And you're part of that large practice, but I can attest to my life being changed because I suffer from keratoconus, a unique eye condition, for the past 10 or 12 years. And without particular, special kind of contact lens, I don't really see very well. And that impacts everything that I do. And so, I love the opportunity for us to bring you on. In our conversation, you shared some gems with me. And, I have to be honest, when I hear a glaucoma, I'm thinking of an eye disease that affects old people, right? So I would love for you to correct my ignorance, if you will, or, add some light for us who are uneducated about what glaucoma really is and maybe break that down in layman's terms and share how that impacts our community.
Great. I would like to share the story with you of a girl. We're going to call her Lisa. I have to change her names for
Absolutely.
But Lisa was a 34-year-old African-American woman, had a high-power professional job. In November, she was putting on eye makeup. And as she had one eye closed, she realized that she could not see out of the other eye. And after freaking out and coming to it, she went to see an eye doctor who then referred her to me. Lisa had advanced stage glaucoma and didn't even know it. 34 years old, she was blind in one eye from glaucoma.
Wow.
And the sad thing, sometimes you think, well, I can't have glaucoma. I get eye exams every year. But guess what? Lisa had gotten eye exams every year. And so one of the things that I do, one of the things that I'm passionate about, which is one of the reasons why I ran for Mrs. DC America, was to empower people with the information that they needed to make sure that they were getting the knowledge that they needed. So you asked, what is glaucoma? Glaucoma is a series of diseases. It's not just one thing. It's a series of diseases, but they all have the same characteristics. They all cause damage to the optic nerve. The optic nerve is like a cable, like the cable on your TV that plugs up into the wall that goes from your eyes to your brain. If you cut the cable on your TV, you don't get a signal. Similarly, if that cable, the optic nerve, gets damaged enough, you go blind. And the thing with glaucoma is that it is painless. And it starts affecting your peripheral vision, your side vision. So you don't notice at first when you first get it. And then if it's affecting one eye more than the other, you might still have good vision in one eye and not even notice that the other eye is failing, like what happened to Lisa. And what happens is that sometimes some people there's different kinds of eye exams, and sometimes people don't realize it. There are eye exams where they're just checking you for glasses, but they're not doing a medical eye exam. And there are eye exams where they're doing medical and they're checking you for medical diseases. So it is important that when you go to the eye doctor, you get a dilated eye exam. It has to be dilated. That's where they put the drops in your eyes and make your vision blurry.
Right.
And if you have any kind of medical condition like high blood pressure, diabetes, you should do that every year. Or any kind of medical or eye condition every year, at least. If you have glaucoma already, you've got to go a few times a year. And if you are completely healthy, don't wear glasses, no health problems whatsoever, every 2 years. And when you go, I developed a mnemonic to help people remember questions to ask, because what we bring attention to, people notice. So if I said, you like my earrings, Stephen? You might say, oh, I didn't even notice you're wearing earrings until you asked, right? So we bring attention to it by asking. So the questions that I want people to ask is, are you all set? S-E-T. S, are there any signs of glaucoma? E, what was my eye pressure? T, testing. Is there any additional testing that we need to do? So am I all set? Are there any signs of glaucoma? What was my eye pressure? Is there any testing that we need to do? And just for a moment to go over a very, very common misconception that even some eye doctors still have, and a lot of people in the public have. People think that if their eye pressure is not high, that means that they don't have glaucoma. And that is simply not true. If your eye pressure is high, that's definitely a risk factor for glaucoma, and you definitely need more testing. But if your eye pressure is not high, then you can still have glaucoma. There is something called normal tension or normal pressure glaucoma. So you can have glaucoma, number one, at any age, from being a newborn baby to being a 99-year-old woman. Really? It is it's more common in people once they get to their 60s. But like I said, Lisa was only 34 years old. And then you can have glaucoma at any eye pressure, and there's no magic eye pressure that makes you safe. And then if you are African American or Latino, you have a 4 to 6 times higher chance of having glaucoma than a Caucasian does. And then if you have anyone in your family who has glaucoma, a lot of times people don't know. So that's why it's important when you're having your get-togethers to talk about health and health issues. But if you do know of a family member that has glaucoma, or if you are a person with glaucoma, then make sure, I always tell all my patients, if you've got any brothers or sisters, if you have any children, make sure they all get examined, because those are some of the risk factors. And then some other risk factors are diabetes as well. If you have diabetes, you should be getting yearly eye exams anyway, but that's another risk factor.
Dr. Thandeka, you just shared so many gems, and I appreciate that breakdown, facet. You touched on something here that I kind of want to bring you back to. You said, we should be talking openly about health stuff in our family. And I feel like in our community, sometimes we want to keep the things that we're going through private, right? And I love that you share that, because it can be helpful.
Yeah.
Sharing what we're dealing with that could be, family related, right? In our genes, if you will.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for that I have to touch on this. I look at your bio and your profile, and immediately I was thinking of the Secchi's commercial about the most interesting man in the world. You're like the most interesting woman in the world. I mean, this lady lobbies for the rights of her patients and profession on Capitol Hill. She's training for the 2019 New York City Marathon. She's into pageantry, salsa dancing, scuba, gourmet cooking. You're a major in the U.S. Army Reserves. If that's not enough, you're a mom to 3 daughters. And I've caught you a couple times on live. You have an amazing Facebook page, Happy Doctor Mom. Listen up. This is amazing. What made you start a Happy Doctor Mom group?
What made me start the Happy Doctor Mom is that I was going through a lot of crap. I got to a point, I thought my 2014, I felt like my life was falling apart. I had gotten fired from a job. I had to move to a different state. I had gotten fired from a job, and then I got another job, and that job was miserable. And I ended up deciding to do my second fellowship in cataract and refractive surgery, which required me to leave my family. I left my husband and daughter in Washington, D.C. to go to Rhode Island, where I didn't know a soul, to work with the world-renowned Dr. Paul Koch, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. But I'm not going to lie, it was really tough. And there is a verse in the Bible that says, in everything give thanks. And I said, God, when I got the promotion, when I got this, or when I got into medical school, it's easy to give thanks for that. But how do I give thanks through all of this craziness, all of this mayhem? And he showed me, and that attitude of gratitude is what got me through. And the thing that I understood implicitly, and that I even understand now, because it's never like you get to a point in your life where the challenges just stop, right? They just change and you get better at dealing with them. And so you get bigger challenges. But what I understood, or what I believed, is that my suffering was not in vain, that the lessons that I was learning were not just supposed to benefit me, but they were supposed to benefit others. And so I started the Happy Doctor Mom group, and my tagline is finding joy and harmony in the midst of motherhood, work, and mayhem. And that was my life, motherhood, work, and a whole lot of mayhem. And it's like, when I was looking for the answer, how do you find joy? How do you find peace? How do you find harmony even when everything is not going the way you planned? And that was the impetus for starting the group. And then there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And just talking to and meeting all these other phenomenal women doctors and moms and getting tips from them, I wanted to create a place where we could share our best practices together, where we could say, like, I met this one lady. She said when her kids were fighting, she got this extra large t-shirt and she made them both get in it at the same time until they could get along. And I thought that was brilliant. I mean, like, that would never occur to me in 1,000 years, but we are all of us moms. We have so much wisdom that comes from life experience. And if we could share that with each other, I think we could all go a lot farther than we could by ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. I shared all these accolades and then you just brought yourself down and said, you know what? I struggle like everyone else. And I love the transparency in that and what you just shared. Before we started talking, you were talking to me about burnout and specifically how that impacts physicians. Could you talk to us a little bit about what creates burnout for physicians and maybe share with us some strategies? You have some strategies here to help prevent that.
Yes. So you talked about transparency. And I think that is one of the things that really needs to happen in medicine. We need to be having more of these conversations because burnout is an epidemic that is killing doctors and patients alike. Did you know that the number one cause of death for female physicians under 35 is suicide? Suicide. Wow. Doctors are killing themselves. Being a physician, physicians have the highest rate of suicide out of any career. Female physicians are 250 50% more likely to commit suicide than a non-physician person.
Wow.
Male physicians, 70% more likely than a non-physician person. This is crazy, right? Like if we had, even in ophthalmology, it's funny, Medscape did a study and they surveyed ophthalmologists and they found that ophthalmologists were the one group that were most likely to indicate that they were happy or extremely happy with their life outside of work. And yet, and still, in that same study, 37%, that is over a third, 1 in 3 ophthalmologists, and these are the happiest doctors, mind you, have had report feelings of depression, suicide, or burnout. This is crazy. This is an epidemic. If there was any other disease, if I told you right now that you have a 37% chance of getting a disease that could kill you, I mean, you probably would start like writing your will and putting your affairs in order. But this is something that we really need to talk about. And that same study showed that only 23% of ophthalmologists were likely to seek help. And the numbers for now, these are the happiest doctors, right? And the numbers for the other doctors are even worse. I think like cardiologists, I think they were really showed a lot of burnout. I don't remember those numbers, but this is something that we need to talk about. And what happens? What is the definition of burnout? I found one study. It's funny, a lot of times we're having these discussions, but we don't really define what burnout is. I kind of say it's sort of like pornography where you know what it is when you see it, but it's sometimes hard to put into words. But one study, they described burnout as a constellation of symptoms that occur when your energy account has a negative balance over time. And your energy account consists of your physical energy, your spiritual energy, and your emotional energy. And just like we all have cars, right? But what happens if you don't put gas in the car? Eventually that car will stop running. And the same thing happens to doctors. And the cardinal symptoms of burnout for a doctor are, number one, exhaustion. Do you ever go to the doctor and see that they just look tired? And they just look, that might be a doctor who is on the verge of burnout, if not burnt out already. Depersonalization. So when you are tired and exhausted, and we've all experienced, every single doctor has experienced burnout to some degree or another. We've all had days where we were really just struggling. And when you are in so much pain as a physician trying to it's hard to give what you don't, it's impossible to give what you don't have, in fact. But when you are in pain, then patients stop becoming people. That's depersonalization. They become diseases. They become annoyances. Oh, that annoying lady in room 2 with the cataracts. Oh, she just won't stop complaining about her blindness. Oh, that lady that's just whining all the time because she went blind from glaucoma. Gosh, she's so annoying. And these are the conversations that we have when patients aren't listening. And sometimes they're the conversations that we have in our heads. I had one friend who told me about how she, and sorry if this grosses you out, Stephen, but she had a baby. And after having the baby, she had 3rd degree, which is really, really bad vaginal, like the worst kind of vaginal tears. And it didn't heal well. And she was in a tremendous amount of pain, like excruciating. And this is someone with a high threshold for pain, but she was in excruciating pain. She went to the doctor to get help because she was in pain. And when the doctor tried to touch her vaginal area with the speculum, she screamed out because
I'm cringing thinking about that. Yeah.
Sorry, you were right. You thought we were talking about eyes, but she screamed out because she was in that much excruciating pain. And do you know what he said to her?
Like, just calm down, right? Stop making noise about it.
He said, "Come on, don't act like you never had sex before."
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, my Jamaican accent would have shifted on him real quick right there. we would not be trailblazers PG at that moment.
Oh my God, I'm trying to think of. But I have to think, so obviously this is somebody who was completely lacking in compassion. For another human being to not recognize that a person is in pain, that's somebody who's like shut off and cut off. And that's the best example of depersonalization that I can think of. And that's one of the signs of burnt out. I imagine that doctor is probably burnt out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we have to talk about it, because burnt out doctors provide crappy care. They provide crappy care. That's the third thing. So the first thing was exhaustion. The second thing was depersonalization. And the third cardinal sign was lack of efficacy. So they don't do a good job. They suck and they make mistakes because they don't care. Like, think about how, like, I don't know if anyone's ever had a job where they quit and they just stopped caring for whatever reason. You're not very motivated to try your best. And it's the same thing with doctors. So this is a conversation that we definitely need to have. We definitely need doctors seeking help, either from therapists or coaches, but we need to start talking about these things.
What's some of the things that you do to help your mental health as a doctor and provide yourself the self-care you need?
So much. All the stuff you just said. And I think I just gave a talk at the American Society for Cataract and Refractive Surgery Tuesday, 2 days ago. And the moniker that I had is be thankful and play. And that's what I do. Be is short for be still. And it is important to have times, because we're always moving and multitasking and doing this and running here and doing that. PTA meetings, school things, conferences, we're always moving, but we need to have times of stillness. And I recommend to all of your listeners to have a stillness practice. If you look at everyone who's operating at the highest level, regardless of the profession, they all have some kind of stillness practice, whether it's meditation or mindfulness or even just being with nature. And so one of the things I do, I meditate. One of the things I really love that I want to get back into is doing yoga, which is a moving meditation. So it helps both your body, mind, and spirit. And then, so that's the be still. So be thankful. Be is be still. Thank is what we started off with, is gratitude. And when I heard a talk by Oprah from 1983, and she said that one of her practices is every day she writes 5 things down that she's grateful for, and she keeps a grateful journal. And I said, oh, if that worked for Oprah, it's going to work for me. And so I try to do 10, right? If Oprah did 5, I'm doing 10. So I try to write down every day things I'm grateful for. And if I don't write it down, I speak it. I say, thank God for this beautiful day. Thank God for the rain, because that's what makes the flowers grow. Thank God for divine connections like meeting Stephen. And so that's one thing I do. So being still, practicing gratitude. Full is just living a life of fulfillment, where you feel fulfilled, where you are walking in your purpose and knowing your purpose, knowing why you're here. I think that, and not even I think, actually they did a study in Japan with 73,000 Japanese men, and they found that the men that were in touch or felt connected to their purpose, they actually lived 14 years longer. If you don't know why you're waking up every day or why you're even here, it makes life a lot less fun. But when you can identify what you're passionate about, what your gifts are, and you can move in that direction of your purpose, that makes life a lot more fun. And then the last thing is play. Have fun. Everything I do is centered around fun. When I go to work, I'm having fun. And if I can't have fun at my job, then it's time for me to have another job. And all these things, like the reason why I do the marathon is because it's fun. The reason why I do fundraising is because it's fun. The reason why I do Facebook Lives is that even talking, you can see my face. They know your listeners can't, but you can see I'm lighting up even just talking about these things. Yeah, I just try to have fun. We are here one time, as far as I know, and we might as well live the best lives that we can. Live it to the fullest. And then playing, just when you see children, they're usually not very stressed out. They're usually pretty happy. They're not worried. They don't overwhelm because they don't hold on to things. And they know how to play. And one of the things that I have started doing recently, I attended a lecture by this woman. I think she has an organization called Love Sanctuary. Her name's Angela. I forgot her last name right now. But she talked about the importance of playing. And after I went to her lecture, I started using my children as my teachers for play and doing things like coloring, jumping in puddles, just not taking life too seriously. I was walking with my kids down the hall, and my 5-year-old decided that she was going to walk backwards. And so I said, okay, I'll walk backwards too. I don't know why we're walking backwards, but okay, this is kind of fun. I hope I don't bump into it. But just sort of having that lighthearted attitude. So that's what really, those are some of the practices that really work for me.
I love that. I need to take a note out of that book. And talking about books, let's talk about your latest book, Toxic Medicine, The Harm and Healing of Black Women Patients and Physicians in Our Medical System. Who's the book for and what is it about? Well, clearly I know who's it's for, but talk to us about it.
Actually, it's for everybody, right? Because like civil rights is the only reason why we were able to make progress with civil rights is because everybody was fighting on the front line. It wasn't just Black people. It was Black people and white people and yellow people and green people and brown people. Everybody was on the front line. And I think that at this point in time in our country, we have become so polarized along political lines, along racial lines, where everybody's pointing fingers and saying, they're bad, the Democrats are bad, the Republicans are bad, they're deplorable, Christians are bad, non-Christians are bad. Everybody's pointing fingers, judging everybody. And I think the racial tensions in our country are at an all-time high compared to what it's been like in the last couple of decades at least. And I think that, just like in South Africa, they had the Truth and Reconciliation hearings, and that was something that helped to bring healing to that country after all of the devastation of apartheid. In this country, I think that we need to have spaces and conversations where we can safely talk about our hurts and healing. And the idea for this book, Toxic Medicine, came when I was at a conference, and the conference was geared towards physicians who were looking for an out from medicine, the physicians that were tired of feeling abused and misused. And when I looked in the room was predominantly all Black female physicians. There was about 2, maybe 3 Black men. And it occurred to me, because people were sharing their stories, that all physicians are experiencing this epidemic of burnout. But for Black female physicians, it's a step further. And I was talking to someone and he said, what does it do to your psyche when somebody is constantly questioning your right to be where you are? So for me, as an attractive, relatively young, I like to think of myself as still young,
Absolutely.
Black female eye surgeon, every single day, I won't even say almost every single day, when I am in my office and I walk in the door, several times a day, I have the experience of, oh, you're the doctor? Because the image that most of us have, because of our country and how we were socialized, not because we are racist or evil or bad, but just because how we were socialized, is that the image that most of us have of a doctor, especially a surgeon, is a white, middle-aged male.
Yeah.
And kind of a nerdy one at that too. Mm-hmm. And so anytime you challenge that image, anytime you present something different than that, people have to begin to question. People get a little bit confused or thrown off. So being in that conference, I heard women, Black female physicians, talking about the harms, the abuses that they had experienced in the medical system. And then I started talking to some of my friends who were also Black women, like the woman I shared with you, who had the issues with giving birth and the insensitive doctor. And there were so many. Recently, the story of Henrietta Lacks was publicized in the media, but there are it's like, once I started, it was like Pandora's box. Once I started, like, there's not been one Black woman that I have talked to that has not had some form of abuse or assault from the medical system. And we have conferences about this, where we talk about disparities and how a Black woman with a heart attack who goes to the emergency room gets treated differently than a white man with a heart attack. And it's crazy. And so the reason for the book is to bring light, first of all, to this thing that is happening and killing our doctors and killing our women, and then to talk about solutions that will help us heal as Black women and heal as a country.
Love it. Love it. Listen up. I could keep going with you for a good bit more. And I definitely will probably follow up on this conversation because there are a lot of gems in this episode that you shared. And I'm sure there's a lot more that we never got a chance to get into. But as we get set to wrap up here, are there any books that you've read or you're reading that you'd like to share with our community that they might find value in adding to their summer queue?
I would recommend 2 books. So I think the biggest thing, the most important take-home message is that I have is the importance of loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And that means being an advocate for ourselves in the healthcare system. That means being an advocate for ourselves in relationships and as we stand in our various roles in the family. Because so often I see women that are taking care of everybody else but themselves.
Right.
One book I would say is a book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depended on It. And it's a very short story. You can read it in probably about a couple of hours about this gentleman and how his entire life changed when he learned to love himself. The second book that has been very instrumental in my life, and there's so many, I love books, but these are the first 2 that come to mind, is a book by an author named Byron Katie called Loving What Is. Because when you can learn, so first you learn to love yourself. And then when you can learn to love what is, nothing can really touch you. That ends suffering, because suffering occurs when we decide that what is not what is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. You know, that guy was mean to me and he shouldn't have been. But it pretty much, loving what is challenges your way of how you look at things. And when you look at things differently, you experience them differently. So those have been 2 really life-changing books for me that I would recommend for all your readers.
You know, as I listen to you, much of this conversation that you touched on being a Black woman, a professional, a leader, you know, I can't help but recommend another book for you and for everyone listening. It's a book written by a past guest of ours, Tiffany DeFoo. And the name of the book is Drop the Ball. I highly, highly recommend checking that book out. And I'm pretty sure you'll thank me later for that title.
Drop the Ball?
Drop the Ball by Tiffany DeFoo. DUFU.
I love it.
The last question for you. Actually, before I ask you the last question, tell us how we can stay connected to you online and keep connected and learn a bit more about you.
You know, the funny thing is that with the Happy Dr. Mom group, I thought that I was primarily talking to women, right? Mom, women. But I frequently get messages from guys who say that they've benefited from listening to the things that I talk about. Also, in the talk that I did on Tuesday, the audience was mostly men. So I thought I was talking to moms, but both men and women need to hear this. So if you're a working mom or dad and trying to figure out work-life integration, I would love it if you could join me on one of my Facebook Lives or join my Facebook page, Happy Dr. Mom, no spaces in between. Also, if you want to learn more about eye care, you can find me on Dr. Thandi on Facebook and also on Instagram, Dr. Dr. Thandi, Thandi. So Dr. Thandi or Happy Dr. Mom.
Dr. Thandi, love it, love it, love it. Last question for you. We can wrap up for today. What's one action our Blazer Nation should take this week that's going to help them to blaze their trail?
One, well, you said one, but I would say one thing is that I would like them to, everyone listening, to commit, to make a commitment to do one of the things in the Be Thankful and Play acronym. Commit to one way that you will be still. And let me just say that even sometimes people make meditation be this huge thing, but even 3 to 5 minutes of meditation can be beneficial. So commit to one way that you will be still. Commit to one way that you will practice gratitude. Commit to one way that you will continue or begin to walk in your purpose. And then pick one way that you will play.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you so very much for all these amazing gems and that Black girl magic. We'll definitely stay connected to you, and I'm so happy you're now part of the Trailblazer family.
Yay! Yay. I'm so happy to be here. Yay. Hashtag Black Girl Magic.
I'm Steve Nehart, and you've been listening to the Trailblazers.fm podcast. If you're not yet doing so, consider following Trailblazers.fm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and feel free to connect with me over on LinkedIn. Whenever you're posting stories or social media posts about Trailblazers.fm, be sure to use the hashtag TBPod and hashtag Mission Fuel. We'll be able to see you, and I'll be able to show some love. And in case you're not aware, our show notes for all our episodes can be found on our website over at tbpod.com. Now, if today was your first time listening, I just want to say big ups, enough respect for checking us out. You've made this Jamaican guy really happy that you're here with us today. And I'd love your help with keeping this Black excellence flowing each and every week. So if you haven't yet subscribed, hop on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Search Trailblazers.fm and subscribe, rate, and review us there. Be sure to browse through some of our past episodes. There are more than 150 published episodes now, and a little something is out there for everyone to help keep the knowledge flowing. We grow when you, as part of our Blazer Nation community, shares and invites your friends and family to listen to an episode you think might impact them most. We believe that someone listening to these inspiring stories are going to be moved to make significant changes that have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Don't miss next week's episode. New episodes are released each and every Monday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern. Blazer Nation, go out today and find a way to rise above, go way beyond, and keep blazing your trail.